Muhammad was convinced that he was demon-possessed. That was Muhammad's view. Khadijah convinced him, no, you're not possessed by a demon. You're actually a messenger of Allah. Now, please call in and tell us why you believe that Khadijah was an infallible witness of who is a prophet and who is not. What makes her that way? Keep in mind, Khadijah, even after Muhammad received the call to prophethood, as Muslims believe, Khadijah continued to pray to Allat, Al-Lus, and Manat. So why would you expect her to know who is and who is not a prophet of God? But we do need to keep in mind that Muhammad's first impression of his revelations was that they were demonic in origin. And he wasn't the first person to think that he had problems. If you go back to his childhood nurse, she thought that he was demon-possessed. Muhammad would say that people were opening him up. Some sort of spiritual beings were opening him up and looking around inside of him. When she was asked, do you believe that Muhammad is demon-possessed? She said, yes. So this goes back to his childhood. If we go forward, we find all kinds of interesting things. Probably the most interesting are the infamous satanic verses. You Muslims, when you read Surah 53, you should know that it initially promoted polytheism. If you go to Surah 53, when you get to verse 19, where it refers to Allat, Al-Lus, and Manat, the third, the other, what that passage originally said was, have you not heard of Allat, Al-Lus, and Manat, the third, the other? These are the exalted cranes whose intercession is to be hoped for. So, according to what Surah 53 originally said, there are three goddesses that Muslims can pray to in addition to Allah. So you can pray to these goddesses, and these goddesses will carry your prayers up to Allah. Muhammad received these verses. He delivered them to his followers. He bowed down in honor of these verses, and his followers bowed down with him. And according to Muslim sources, even the pagans bowed down because they were overjoyed that Muhammad had finally compromised with their paganism and had praised and spoken highly of their goddesses. But a little while later, Muhammad came back and said, by the way, those verses that I delivered to you, and I said those were revelation from Allah, sorry, the devil made me do it. Satan tricked me into delivering those verses to you. And why is this important? Well, we've seen that Muhammad was convinced that he was demon-possessed initially, that his childhood nurse was convinced that he was demon-possessed. If you go to Deuteronomy 18:20, and just earlier today, and if you talk to Muslims, Muslims will constantly say that Deuteronomy 18:18 is a prophecy about Muhammad, where we're told that another prophet like Moses is going to come. And Muslims say, Deuteronomy 18:18. Just earlier today at our 2:30 show, a Muslim called in and said, Deuteronomy 18:18, this talks about Muhammad. Well, if you believe Deuteronomy 18:18 has something to do about Muhammad, I would advise you to go 2 verses later if you want something about Muhammad, where it specifically says, if a prophet speaks in the name of other gods, so promotes polytheism, or delivers a revelation that does not come from God, that prophet will die. So think about this. We have here in Deuteronomy, in a passage that's the most frequently quoted passage among Muslims from the Old Testament, Deuteronomy 18:20 gives us 2 criteria of a false prophet: promoting polytheism and delivering a revelation that doesn't come from God. When Muhammad delivered the satanic verses, he did both. He spoke in the name of Allah, Al-Lus, and Manat. He promoted polytheism among his followers. And then he came back and said, that revelation which I delivered from God, it wasn't really from God. So he admittedly delivered a revelation that did not come from God. Why is that important? Well, if Muhammad had tried that among the Jews, or at the time of Moses and not among the pagans, if he had done that during the time of Moses, Moses would have ordered the people around him to pick up stones and stone him to death as a false prophet. So you have Muhammad believing that he's demon-possessed, his childhood nurse believing that he's demon-possessed, and Moses ordered that people like that false prophet who deliver false revelations had to die as false prophets. And it continues. Let me read 2 passages from Sahih al-Bukhari talking about Muhammad being the victim of black magic. Sahih al-Bukhari 3175. Aisha narrated, so this comes from Aisha, the mother of the faithful. Aisha narrated, once the prophet was bewitched so that he began to imagine that he had done a thing when in fact he had not done. Sahih al-Bukhari number 5765. Aisha narrated, magic was worked on Allah's apostle so that he used to think that he had sexual relations with his wives while he actually had not. Then one day he said, "O Aisha, do you not know that Allah has instructed me concerning the matter I asked him about? 2 men came to me, and one of them sat near my head, and the other sat near my feet. The one near my head asked the other, 'What is wrong with this man?' The latter replied, 'He is under the effect of magic.' The first one asked, 'Who has worked magic on him?' The other replied, 'Labid bin al-Asam, a man from Bani Zurayk, who was an ally of the Jews and a hypocrite.' The first one asked, 'What material did he use?' The other replied, 'A comb, and the hair stuck to it.'" So why was Muhammad having delusional thoughts and false beliefs about things that he had done? Because the Jews did it. The Jews got someone to cast a spell on him by using a hair from his hairbrush. And why is this important? Well, if you don't believe God is going to protect his mightiest prophet from spiritual attack, wow, you're kind of different from me. But this is important because according to the Quran, Surah 2:102, magic is something that comes from demons. It's demonic attack. The demons teach magic. So what you're telling me is that according to your most trusted sources, Sahih al-Bukhari and the Quran, God's greatest messenger, God's greatest prophet, the seal of the prophets, can be taken out by some random person who gets a hair from his hairbrush and can give him delusional thoughts and false beliefs for, depending on your sources, somewhere between 6 months and 2 years. Muhammad's going around acting very, very weird. Why? Because of magic, which is taught by demons. And I'll just say, I've brought this up on the show before, many years ago, a high priest of Wicca, in order to prevent me from refuting him, cast a spell on me. And it didn't work. In fact, he died shortly thereafter. The spell certainly did not work. And why didn't that magic spell work? This is a high priest, the high priest of Wicca. Actually got threads out of my clothes. And I would, if you're a magician, you want to cast a spell on me, I will give you anything you want. I'll give you nail clippings, I'll give you my hair, whatever you want. It's not going to work. Why? Because he who is in me is greater than he who's in the world.
Amen.
And if you believe that your prophet could fall victim to black magic when I'm protected from it, what does this tell you about your prophet? Allah would not protect him or could not protect him. So every possible way we could look at this, we see nothing but problems. Childhood nurse thinks he's demon-possessed. Muhammad thinks he's demon-possessed, thinks that something evil has appeared to him, has to be talked out of it. Whatever appeared to him made him suicidal. He's a false prophet, according to Moses. He's a victim of black magic, which according to the Quran is demonic in origin. And Jesus' follower, according to Jesus' follower, the Apostle John, he's the Antichrist because he denies the Son. How much evidence, my friends, how much evidence do you need that there's something very, very wrong going on here?
You have from Brother Walid in his book, in Eschatology. Brother Walid doesn't have the time to share all the information he has in here, but pointing out that Islam fits not rather nicely, but almost perfectly, doesn't it? The biblical picture of Antichrist.
Absolutely. Just to add to what our brother here just said,
Yeah.
Allah did not make qualms about revealing himself to Muhammad, basically who he is in his essence.
Yeah.
And in fact, the description of Allah in the Quran,
Yeah.
I memorized the verse quite well. Allahu nuru as-samawati wal-ard, مثل نوره كمصباح, المصباح في زجاجة, الزجاجة كأنها كوكب دري. Allah is the light of the heavens and the earth. The likeness of his light is as a lamp, as a torch.
Yeah.
A torch is in a star, kind of. So there's this star and there is this lamp, as Allah has described. And just to remind you the verse I shared, a third angel sounded and a great star fell from heaven. That's Lucifer, burning like a what? Lamp. Torch. The exact description of Allah in the Quran has been described in the Bible as to Lucifer. And then the elements of his 99 names is very clear. The 99 names of Allah, of course, many of these names are taken from the Bible.
Yeah.
But then he wants to be like God. So he applies to himself terms to be real terms of who God is. But then you read between the lines in some of these descriptions, he is called Al-Mumit, the one who caused death. Ad-Dar, the afflictor. You know, Khayrul Makirin again, the greatest of all deceivers, one of the titles of him.
Yeah.
And he is also Khayrul Makirin, Al-Mutakabbir, which means the most proud one. Al-Mutakabbir, the most proud one, is in the Bible. Who is the most proud one?
Satan himself.
You know, who is the star that fell from heaven? Who is
Satan.
all the descriptions of who Allah is and Muhammad is, and the inspiration is pretty much in the Bible.